Welcome back to Balmer's Workshop, and thanks so much for joining me here again. It is always nice to have you back. This time we're going to be having a look at the build of some rooftop tent crossbars for a third generation Toyota Tacoma. The reason that I'm building these bars is actually to replace the cargo platform that the rooftop tent was previously mounted to. You can see me removing that now. That platform actually held up quite well for the customer. It was a good product. However, the mounting points for the platform are the stock Toyota Tacoma bed rails, and it is those that proved to be the weak point. They just weren't up to the job of holding the weight of the platform itself, the rooftop tent, and the occupants. And what happened is one of those bed rails did indeed collapse. So with the new build, what we're going to do is mount the rooftop tent crossbars into the tops of the bed sides rather than into the bed rails, because it will be a much more solid and secure approach. But one of the issues with using this method is that, as you can see here, the box sides have a ton of square holes in the tops, and that's to facilitate mounting the plastic box side caps or bedside caps. So I need to work around those holes when I'm considering mounting my brackets to the tops of the bed sides. Obviously I need I'd want four mounting locations for each bracket, 4 threaded fasteners for each bracket, and I have to ensure that there is the footprint to allow for that. So I'm just finding spots that work both for the dimensions of the rooftop tent as well as for the bed sides. So I took a little bit of messing around to figure out the best positioning. Of course, I didn't want to interfere with any of those rectangular holes, and I didn't even want to come very close to them with the round holes that I'm going to drill for my fasteners, because of course if the holes are too close together, then the webbing is very thin, which compromises the holding strength of my riveted threaded fasteners. But eventually I did figure out the correct spots, and the dimensions for those are actually noted later in the video. So if you're working on a third gen Tacoma and you want to use those locations, please feel free. You'll save yourself a ton of time, as I did when I switched over to the passenger side of the vehicle. All I had to do was copy all of my dimensions from the driver's side over to the passenger side, and that was a much quicker job. So excuse me, like I said, please feel free to take the dimensions from this video and use them for yourself. It will be a time saver, and they should be pretty universal in terms of working with multiple brands of rooftop tents. And here you can see me installing those threaded fasteners that I was talking about. These are a really handy solution when you don't have access to the backside of the material in order to put a nut on. They're not necessarily as strong as a nut and bolt, especially once you've got a washer on the backside of that nut, but they are a pretty good solution, again, when you just simply don't have access to the backside. And so long as you've got the correct grip range chosen for the thickness of material you're using, they are a very strong and secure solution. In this case, I think they're going to do everything they need to do. They are available in virtually all sizes, and for this job I decided on 1/4 inch by 20 TPI. The vertical positioning, the customer was quite happy with that initially. So the original platform had the top of the tent perfectly even with the roof line of the vehicle, and we're sticking with that for the crossbar build. But my crossbars are 1.5 inches lower in profile than the platform was, so the customer actually gains that 1.5 inches in terms of cargo space underneath the crossbars. So a little bit of a bonus for him there. As far as materials go, I chose to use 1/8 inch thick mild steel plate to make my brackets from. I really didn't see any benefit in going any heavier than that, or any thicker than that rather, being as they're not actually supporting any load, they're just locating the crossbars. And for the crossbars themselves, I chose to use 1.5 inch by 2.5 inch rectangular tube with a wall thickness of 100 thou. And a quick and heartfelt thank you to all my recent subscribers. Your support is much appreciated. If you like the content, please do subscribe. Alright, so most of this one is on time lapse, but I'll give you a quick going over of what I have done here. I realized that I cannot use the same mounts front and rear because there's more depth, or more width I should say, to the box side here at the front than there is here at the rear, and I want to use as much as I can in both locations to spread my bolt holes as much as possible and just to make everything suit the truck as well as I can. So I have basically I started by finding some points in the bed rail where I had enough holding material to place my threaded inserts. So in other words, I was really close to this hole here, so I had to just kind of be careful with my measurements there. And of course I have to have my screws go through this plastic cover, so again I had to be careful not to just use the plastic cover as a guide, because I might have wound up too close to this edge, too close to this hole, or too close to this flanged area here where there's double wall. I actually did wind up clamping into some of that double walled area, but I didn't want to obviously go too far back, using this part as a guide where there's a relief in here. So if I would have gone any further back, of course I would have been into that relief and it just wouldn't have worked to put my insert there. So I had to be pretty careful with my locations on these, so I took a long time to mark them out. I just made some marks on the box side here in terms of measurements. I made a starting point by just putting my tape measure in this hole here that obviously is mirrored on the other side of the vehicle, and then measured forward to a point where I thought I had, a reasonable opportunity to put some fasteners in there. I wanted them to be 3.5 inches apart because I'm going to be using 2.5 inch by 1.5 inch rectangle tube as my actual crossbars that are going to go over the truck. So I wanted to have at least 1/2 inch of space on either side of that crossbar before my hole center. And then I wanted to have about 5-inch wide brackets to keep everything nice and tight and kind of as trim as it can be. And so that's what I was kind of using as my my parameters to build these or to mount these brackets by. And I've drawn that out, you can see on the top here, and then I've drilled 3/8 holes through the plastic. So these are going to be 1/4 inch threaded holes, and then 3/8 holes up top. So I've got a little bit of leeway on those to pass my my threaded screws through there, or bolts, whichever I decide to use through there, to fasten the bracket down. So that was the approach that I took, and then all I had to do on the other side was just mirror everything. So it was much quicker to do this side. I just made my marks, and then I was able to use my bracket that I had made for the other side as a template to just simply mark everything off of. So this side went much quicker. And now I am working on the rear brackets, one of which I have right here. Started that, and I've been confident of the outside hole placement. Fits well, although the bracket protrudes a little further out than the rear one does, so I might just trim this down slightly after I'm done. But now I need to figure out where I'm going to put my my inboard holes. So that is the next step, and to do that I'm basically just going to remove the plastic cap, see where I've got good material to go into as far as I possibly can go inboard. I'll mark those spots, I'll drill it out, and then I'll copy that onto the plastic and onto the bracket here as well, and then we'll move ahead and do the other side. So pretty straightforward. So I have drilled my holes for my threaded inserts now, and I can place my bracket over that and make sure that I've got everything lining up, and it lines up beautifully, so no problems there. And I already know basically where I want to place my other 2 threaded fasteners. They're going to be asymmetrical in this case, but this is where I have my best holding material. It looks like it will be double walled here probably, but I haven't had an issue with that so far in terms of the threaded fasteners, the riveted threaded fasteners actually grabbing. So I will use that, and that is my locations. So now what I'm going to do is just mark back from the center point of this hole to that one, and obviously the same over here in order to mark those positions on my bracket. I'll punch mark them, drill them out, double check it on here again, and then we'll drill these guys out and put some fasteners in them and match those holes on the plastic bedside cover or bed rail cover, and then we can go ahead and bolt these brackets into place. We'll mimic it on the other side of the vehicle, and once I have all 4 in position, then we can start actually building the crossbars themselves. And here's the holes at the front of the bed. Let's line the bracket up with those rear holes again, and you can see that now that I just measured forward like I said I was going to do, I've got pretty decent alignment for the front, or for the inboard holes rather. So I'm going to go ahead and punch mark those, and then I will insert threaded inserts into all of them. Here's the crossbars that I was talking about, or the material that I'm going to use for the crossbars. This is going to be the section that goes up to the upright, and that's cut on 30 degrees, so it'll create a 60-degree angle. That's what you're looking at there, and on top of that I'll put a crossbar to go over to the other box rail, and this end will be welded onto the brackets that you just saw. So a pretty straightforward build. I knew that my customer wanted about 8 inches of elevation from the box side to the top of the crossbar. The crossbar is 1.5 inches thick, so I have cut this so that it will be 6.5 inches tall. And the way that I did that was I used a big builder's square. I popped my piece in it like so. I set another builder's square. That's let me get those out of the way. That's 6.5 inches, and there you are. I cut it to length. So now we know that that's going to be nice and precise. I can use this as a mock-up, as a template rather, for all 3 of my other pieces, and then we'll make some crossbars to go with them. One crossbar will be wider or longer than the other, very likely, because I believe the box is tapered to the rear of the vehicle. So my time-lapse camera ran out of batteries for the time being. But what I have done is just taken all my brackets off of the truck now and attached these uprights that I believe I showed you me making them earlier. 30-degree cuts equals a 60-degree angle. And I just set them flush on the brackets, centered them. I went a 1/2 inch in from the back side of the plate on all 4 brackets and tacked them in that position. And now I'm going to go ahead and install them on the truck. As you will have seen on the time lapse, I have tacked my top bars in place, in situ I should say. I do them in position so that I know that my fit up is going to be just right, and of course I've protected the vehicle. Here on the back side of the cab I've got a blanket over that protecting the rear window, and then I also had welding pads in place to protect the paint on the sides of the box when I was tacking up there. I've already removed the rear of the 2 rooftop tent crossbars, and it is right here, ready for weld up. Before I weld it up, I'm going to brace between my brackets so that I don't have any distortion thanks to heat warpage. And I just got to remove this other one, and we'll do the same. So again, I'll do that on time lapse, And we'll get these fully welded up. We'll fit them back on the truck, make sure they still fit perfectly, and then they're ready for sandblast and powder coat, and I can move on to that winch job. The rooftop tent bars are done. All screwed in securely with nice stainless steel 1/4-inch fasteners. I will add lock washers to those on the actual install, but for right now they're just fitted up so that we know that it fits up very well, and then it will get sent out for sandblasting, rust resistant primer, and powder coat after this. And then of course we'll install them permanently and add the rooftop tent back onto it without the rack that you see beneath. So that's it for that portion of the job. It went reasonably well. It was very time consuming and more effort than I thought it would be, but it's turned out well. All the angles virtually match perfectly, and dimensionally it's exact as well. So very good, done with that. Wrapped up. The new crossbars are in place, and we've used stainless fasteners to secure everything. 16 1/4-inch stainless fasteners holding down these 2 bars should be enough, I do believe. They're mounted into riv nuts, as you will have seen earlier in the video. These are riveted fasteners, so they're not the strongest fasteners on the face of the earth. However, I think they're going to do the job well, not just because there's 16 of them, but because really they're not resisting a lot of forces. The natural tendency of this RTT is of course for gravity to pull it down against the box sides, so they're not fighting anything in that sense. They're just trying to keep it positioned. The only time when these screws will have a lot of force applied to them is when the customer is wheeling his vehicle and you wind up with a lot of twist happening in the box, and then they're going to fight each other a little bit. But again, with 16 mounts, I think we're rock solid, so no worries there. And what else can I tell you about it? Let's turn on a light so you can see up underneath. We've used the stock fasteners from the tent. They don't fit these bars perfectly. There is a void underneath, but they're tight, and I don't think we'll have any issues. If the customer does have issues, we can rebuild these brackets for him really easily, but I don't think there's going to be a problem at all. So it's mounted up really nice, perfectly even with the top of the roof bars, which is nice. So basically he's not needing any added clearance for the vehicle at this point. Comes very, very close to the cab of the truck, but not too close. And it comes very close to the back of the box, but not too close. So nice job all in all. I'm happy with how it turned out. We did a textured black powder coat on it, which is my favorite coating that we have.
Just gives you lots of traction if you have to grab it for any reason, and it looks nice and it holds up really well.
And that is a wrap for this video. Thanks so much for joining me here again at Balmer's Workshop. Please do come back next time and subscribe if you've been enjoying the content. I've included a few pictures here of the front bumper that I built for this same vehicle. These pictures didn't turn out real well, so I also included some pictures of this same bumper that's featured on another customer's vehicle. If you like the looks of this bumper, you can have a better look at it on my website. That's balmerfab.com. Also, please do visit the Facebook page for the more up-to-date things that are happening around the shop. And again, please come back next time. Thanks so much for all your comments, your subscriptions, and your likes. Take care and be safe. We'll see you next time.